Namaste, myself Reni Khurana, Assistant Professor, Faculty Physiotherapy and Diagnostics, JVM, Rajasthan. Today we are going to discuss about spina bifida. Spina bifida occurs due to a birth defect where the spinal cord doesn't close completely during the early stages of pregnancy. When this happens, the bones of the spine are unable to effectively protect the spinal cord. The result often causes damage to the spinal cord itself or damage to the nerves surrounding the spinal cord. Unfortunately, the causes of the spina bifida are mostly unknown. We know that spina bifida occurs in the womb during pregnancy as a birth defect, although it's unclear which aspects of genetics or which environmental factors might be at play. Depending on the size and location of the opening in the spinal cord, spina bifida causes a range of symptoms. Generally, spina bifida presents itself as physical or mental disabilities ranging from mild to severe. Symptoms of spina bifida includes inability to move the lower body due to paralysis and weakness of the spinal cord and its surrounding nerve endings, poor bowel and bladder control, skin issues, orthopedic issues, learning disabilities, attention problems, and other neurological complications. Classification of spina bifida as occult spinal dysraphism usually cause a dimple and red spot on the lower back along with tufts of hair or small lumps. Only a small spinal defect which causes minor issues like skin condition and issues with the tissue just below the skin. If nerves were affected, this OSD can also affect growth in children. Next is SBO, spina bifida occulta, which is not visible on the back and often referred as hidden spina bifida, caused by a small gap in a few of the spinal vertebrae, occurs in about 15% of the population, causing no symptoms. However, if the nerves were affected, SBO can affect neurological symptoms. It can cause what's called a tethered cord if spinal cord is pulled during growth. Next is meningocele. It occurs when the protective coating of the spinal cord called meninges protrude through an open part of the spine. Nerve damage is uncommon in this case and minor disabilities may be present. Next is myelomeningocele. Most severe classification of spina bifida, also known as myelodysplasia. It occurs when the meninges and spinal nerves protrude through an open part of the spine. Nerve damage and severe disabilities are common. 90% of children with myelomeningocele also have hydrocephalus or excess fluid in the brain, which often requires surgery. Issues with motor control, learning, and mobility may be present. Now, the physiotherapy management of spina bifida. Spina bifida. In case of spina bifida, physiotherapy might not be the first treatment, but in fact, physiotherapy management is important healthcare partner for patients with spina bifida. It can help children and adults with spina bifida by helping them gain and maintain mobility and overall to function at their best throughout every stage of life. Physiotherapists will work alongside other healthcare providers such as orthopedists and occupational therapists for a more holistic treatment plan that expands into every aspect of life. Assessment includes asking about birth and development history to get an understanding of where they might fall on a normal development progression. When could they hold their head up, roll over, crawl or walk? Asking about general health. Have they been sick or in hospital? When was their last GP visit? Addressing parental concerns and about what the parents hope to accomplish in the treatment plan. Physical examination to measure their height and weight, observe movements, balance and coordination, and complete a tactile exam of muscle strength, flexibility and tone. A motor skills examination to test motor development while sitting, crawling, walking, and hand use. The exam might also look at vision, language skills, and other developmental milestones. Once assessment completed, a customized treatment plan can begin either at clinic or on to go, bringing mobile physio services at home or school. Treatment includes infant positioning, parent and family education during infancy, early intervention to provide physiotherapy techniques to encourage healthy development of strength, balance, motor skills, while teaching parents to incorporate these techniques into their daily lives. School-based physiotherapy to work with children with spina bifida on school-related motor skills and tools to help with any neurological deficiencies, providing the appropriate equipment to help children and adults with spina bifida, including braces, walkers, and wheelchairs. Prevention of other possible issues, including obesity, through the encouragement of fitness based activities to promote long term health and well being. Again, physiotherapists will work in tandem with other healthcare providers. Benefits of physical activity are well documented and include lower rates of heart disease, depression, type 2 diabetes, and stroke. Additionally, it is recognized that both children and adults with spina bifida as well as groups of individuals with other disabilities are even less active when compared to general population. Increasing physical activity for individuals with spina bifida may be critical since a loss of strength or fitness may lead to less independence and function in carrying out ADLs. In addition to physical and functional benefits of physical activity, there are many mental health benefits such as perceived improvement in activities of daily living, higher athletic competence, better perceived physical appearance, and greater self-worth and higher quality of life. The physical activity guidelines for children ages 6 to 17 are children should engage in 60 minutes or more of physical activity each day. Aerobic activity should make up most of the youth activity each day. Vigorous intensity aerobic activity should be done at least 3 days per week. Muscle strengthening activities should be done at least 3 weeks per week as part of 60 or more minutes. Bone strengthening activities should be done at least 3 days per week as part of 60 or more minutes. The physical activity guidelines for adults state as adults should avoid inactivity. Some physical activity is better than none, and adults who participate in any amount of physical activity gain some health benefits. For substantial health benefits, adults should do at least 150 minutes, that is 2 hours and 30 minutes a week of moderate intensity, or 75 minutes a week of vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity aerobic activity. Aerobic activity should be performed in episodes of at least 10 minutes, and preferably it should be spread throughout the week. For additional and more extensive health benefits, adults should increase their aerobic physical activity to 300 minutes, that is 5 hours a week of moderate intensity, or 150 minutes a week of vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity activity. Additional health benefits are gained by engaging in physical activity beyond this amount. Adults should also include muscle strengthening activities that involve all major muscle groups on 2 or more days a week. What is the outcome of activities? Primary outcome: increase the minutes per day of daily activity at different levels established. Secondary: increase knowledge and awareness of physical activities, benefits, safeties. Tertiary: improve health outcomes through physical activity participation across lifespan. There are some questions regarding age-wise for 0 to 11 months. Is there evidence that early motor skill intervention increases physical activity across lifespan? How early should doctors and therapists talk to parents about physical activity for infant with spina bifida? Are physical activity goals included in the individual family service plan for children beyond physical and occupational therapy? Some guidelines related to this are: conduct infant motor developmental assessment to evaluate motor function in children with spina bifida to identify the most appropriate therapeutic intervention to enhance motor development outcomes. Provide guidance to parents and include physical therapists in discussion about how to encourage movement and activity in their child. Inform parents and carers. Right to early intervention services that include adapted physical education and activity. Next is for the 1 to 2 years. What strategies work to educate parents about the importance of physical activity and ways to get their child involved? How early should parent education about physical activity start? And what resources are available? What is the most successful way to encourage parents to invest time and money in physical activities for their child with spina bifida? Guidelines regarding this are: discuss with parents the benefits of involving their child with spina bifida in recreation, physical activity and social program services, and provide information and resources about adaptive and inclusive activities for children aged 1 to 2 years. Collaborate with parents to identify physical activities they can do in everyday life to model the importance of physical activity as part of a healthy lifestyle. Use motivational interviewing techniques with the parents to talk about physical activity goals for their child. Through barriers. Inform parents of the rights of their child to adapted physical education and encourage parents to advocate for physical activity goals. Next is for 3 to 5 years. Give some children with spina bifida with limited in their physical function. What activities should they be exposed to and when? Typically, children start playing baseball, soccer, and other team sports at the age of 4 and 5. Should children with spina bifida start similar activities at the same age? What training will coaches need to welcome children to meaningful play? How does proper or improper mobility equipment affect child's ability to participate in physical activity? That is, example, wheelchair that fits properly, proper seating and back setup, ankle foot orthotics and crutches. Who can parents, caregivers or doctors consult when they have questions related to physical activity and exercises that help maintain upper and lower body functions? Guidelines. Discuss with parents the importance of involving the children in physical activity where they can be actively engaged with peers who have and those who don't have disability. Discuss strategies with parents that balance parental involvement in their child's physical activity and need for autonomy to increase independence. Identify and provide additional support and information or precautions that children with shunt and ambulatory limitations should take when being physically active. Use a team approach, include PTs or Ts to work with parents to ensure children have proper fitting mobility equipment to maximize participation in physical activity. Educate parents of their child's right to adapted activity in preschool and encourage parents to advocate physical goals to be added to their individualized educational plan. Next, for the age of 13 to 17 years, Do adapted physical education program in schools adequately prepare? What are the physical activity contraindications? What are the types of physical activities used? In what settings children of this age most comfortable? What are the doses of physical activity used? In physical activity, which is individualized transition plan included? Thank you.